Hey there, Jack Hilton here, aka Unsung Empath, here with another video, but in this time, it's an interview. I'm going back to my old skills as a TV news reporter and just interviewing amazing talents out in the world. You'll have to excuse the birds. They're quite angry with me because I'm not giving attention to them. I'm actually giving attention to my former boss, Joe Adorno, the founder of Yolo Mentoring in Florida. Hi, Joe. How you doing today?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm so well. Thank you so much. A little busy day, technical difficulties all around. Thank you for your patience. I just wanted to give people, especially looking for a career in social work, just a different perspective of what other people are doing with an MSW. And so I just want to kind of highlight your career path of one, what brought you to the field of social work, and what kind of roles and careers did you end up doing, and what did your MSW get you to?
Wow. All right. So we'll start with the first one. What brought me to social work? I originally started my journey in education with, I have a bachelor's in psychology. And then I realized you couldn't really do much with it unless you had like a master's or a PhD level. And at the time I didn't. I was kind of just like over school. I wanted to do something actually working. So I ended up getting a social job, and my first job was working with the homeless. And after about 2 years of doing it, it wasn't something that I wanted to continue. I firmly believe in social work, you have to find your passion. If you're just doing something just for the money or just because it's a job, you will burn out faster than if you do have passion for it. So, and then I got a job working for the Department of Juvenile Justice. I was doing a diversion program that was contracted with them. And I loved it. I loved working with the teenagers. I feel like I'm a big kid at heart, and it seemed to work. Then that company kind of went under, and I started working for the Department of Children and Families. And that's where I started working with children and child welfare and families. And that seemed right. It seemed more right than what I was doing previously. And after doing that for about 3 years, I ended up adopting my first son, and I started grad school, and then I quit my job and then decided to start my own company. And I've been doing that ever since.
You hear that you have a fan club back there?
Is it the birds?
They're so excited, I think they were moved by your journey in social work. So you were working in a very tough, high burnout area in social work. Anything child welfare, I feel, is one of the highest burnout pathways that you can be in. Talk a little bit about a little bit more about what that was like for you, and at what point were you like, I can't keep doing this, or I got to change the way I do this.
Oh man, I can specifically remember burnout for each company I worked for. And they were great. The first one I worked for, and like in any interview I do, I will only mention names of places that are good and awesome, and I will not mention names of things that are not. But the first company I worked for was the Wayne Dench Center. It was a transitional housing for the homeless, run by a wonderful woman. It was a nonprofit, and it was great. It was kind of like a three-quarter house, I guess, if you had to describe it, where they would pay like a minimum to live there. If they disappeared in the middle of the night, they wouldn't come after them for like a lease or anything. It was a program, and the goal was for them to get a job and build up a savings account, and so they would, and then eventually transition back into the community. It was really good. But we would do outreach as well. So we would go into the woods, under bridges, and you never do outreach without food. It's like, even though it's like, imagine somebody walking into your own home. You're sitting there and your door opens and somebody walks in. First of all, who are you and why don't you have food in your hands? So at least doing outreach, like you would always have like donuts, bread, or something, water, and then when you step into their territory, at least it's like a peace offering. So 9 times out of 10, they would humor whatever conversation you would have just because you brought something. So something to definitely look forward to. But I remember it was a nice lady, an older woman, and she had been homeless for years, and her husband was ex-military. So the case manager who was kind of overseeing her stuff, and I was kind of more like the assistant, was able to like get her hooked up with the VA. She was entitled to benefits, insurance. So once they did a few background checks, not backgrounds, but once they did their due diligence, she was entitled to like 6 months of back pay of like a veteran's stipend, I guess. And so when she got a check for like $8,000 and was making $1,500 a month, like, that's when I was like, I'm done. I'm not even making this. And I'm working full time, 40 hours a week for, 4 weeks a month. And you're making, I remember she showed up with a bag, a 1-gallon Ziploc bag of earrings from the Goodwill that did not have a match to it. And she was like, I bought this whole thing for $1. And I lost it. I started crying. I was like, I can't do this anymore. This is not for me. And I was like, I can't. That's when I lost my passion. I just felt something in me was like, this is not right. And not right to the services, but I was like, this isn't the right fit for me.
Well, you know what? It's fine because we can look back and kind of laugh at some of our experiences, but in the moments, just be under fire. And I love that you recognize some of kind of where you're at. And you kind of did do something. You're like, you know what? I'm not going to settle for being underpaid. And unfortunately, I hate it in our social work programs. And even sometimes the people we work with, we hear this, we're not in it for the money. But why not? Like, could we also want to help people, but also have a livable income ourselves? Oftentimes, 100%. We fall into that trap. Yeah. And you did that. I really feel like, and that's why I definitely wanted to have you first, was the fact that you took an MSW degree and you really, like, it's so, sometimes you get into like careers like a doctor or even a nurse. And yeah, you can do so much in those fields, but you kind of stuck are in like some type of medical type of realm. And the beauty of an MSW is that it's so dang big that you can really put it and create what you want to do with it. And you did that. Can you talk a little bit about the pathway to Yolo Mentoring and just kind of how you made not just a career path, but just kind of an organization that's making a difference in Florida, and it's your baby.
Yeah, thank you. I've always had a mentality that I always wanted to run my own show. And I remember sitting, I tell this a lot with interviews. I remember sitting on the bus in 5th grade, looking out the window, going to school saying, how does somebody work for me? Like, the bus driver is working, but who's working, like, who's over the bus driver that they applied? And so I remember just sitting there as a kid, like, how do I become the person that somebody works for? And so I feel it's always been in me. I was just like, I have to do my own stuff. So every job I worked at, I understood, like, this is not my time yet to start my own company, but I'm going to learn everything I could. Now, I always butt heads with people. Like, that is just part of my nature, because I'm like, well, have we tried it like this? So I felt like I always gathered information. And I mean, I use bits and parts of every company I ever worked for as how I do my model. Because some of it made sense and some of it didn't. So I felt it was a good way to navigate of what makes sense for me. But working with children in child welfare, I saw, in my eyes, one of the biggest gaps that hurt me was working with the teenagers that did not have a particular structure to transition to adulthood. And I don't know why that resonates with me so much, but it just does. I mean, kids with mental health issues, kids with criminal backgrounds, I do think instinctively so many kids are good kids. 95% of our kids, I think, are fantastic kids. But I think so many of them are treated like they're the bad ones. And a lot of times they're there for protection, not because they did something wrong. And so I wanted to come in with a different mindset of who's teaching these kids to be adults. And I remember taking a 15-year-old to the movies and him saying, this is the first movie I've ever been to in my life. And I was a little shocked by that. And then taking another kid to like Denny's for like their $5 breakfast or something. And they were like, I don't get why we're sitting down and why didn't we order at the counter? And I was like, well, because the server comes to us. And they had no idea like what a waiter was or a server. And then when I always do this with kids, okay, we got to leave a tip. For what? So I do think that for a lot of us growing up with a single parent or 2-parent home, these are things that you notice and that you're used to. You're used to the movies, you're used to seeing the tip. And at some point you're like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And I do think that's how you learn. But for a lot of kids that I think bounce around from foster home to foster home, it's assumed that they learned something where maybe they weren't. So I always thought that there was something missing. And so I wanted to create a company which I thought helped build a bridge. Now, mentoring is not something that's revolutionary. It's been around since, as long as a caveman learned how to make a wheel, they taught somebody else how to make the wheel.
Right.
It is not brand new, but I wanted to specifically do a company, and I did Yolo Mentoring, and originally it was only male mentors, because in the social service world, it's very heavily dominated by females. So I wanted an agency where it was like, we have male mentors specifically, and that's what I created. And it went pretty well. I mean, it's going pretty well. Don't get me wrong. Like it's still going 10 years later. So it's going pretty well. And I think that we have a particular structure. I wrote a program a particular way. We created a service, and probably one of my other services, we created this when you came on. It was already created, but we created it a little bit prior. About 4 years ago, we created a service that doesn't exist, which was called Sibling Visitation. And it's that simple. We have siblings that are in separate foster homes, because sometimes foster homes can't take a sibling group of 5, but one can take one can take another, and the other one can take 3. And so our sibling visitation service is we pick up kids that are in separate foster homes, and we pick them up so they can hang out together. Yeah. And it's that simple. And it's just, I think it's so needed, but I think it's taken for granted that it's not done, because psychosexual evaluations are important. Tutoring is important. Visitation with their parents are important. And I think this is just one of those services that you forget. So
which is
created
crazy.
It, and we make sure that we get it done.
Which is so crazy, because you know what? Sometimes those kids have parents who cause harm, and
right.
Sometimes siblings are the ones that kind of become kind of parent-like roles, especially with older ones. And to separate them, there's that disconnect from family. And absolutely, I've experienced the impact of having siblings interact with each other once a week or twice a week.
Right. I mean, you saw it, you used to do it. And I used to tell, when I do training with mentors, I say, and I don't know if you remember this, but the first time you have a sibling visit with the first case, they're going to cry when you say it's time to go. And I wasn't prepared for that. And I was one who created the service, and I started it myself and was running it until I started training other people how to do it. Every single time, a new case, cool. You coordinate, you schedule, and then you're at the park 2 hours later, you're like, all right, guys, it's time to go. I mean, hysterical crying, because they hadn't seen each other in months. And then the response is, I'm like, no, you'll see each other next week. And they're like, no, people say that all the time. And it usually takes 2 or 3 times until they're like, okay, you are coming every week. And then it becomes normal. And then they start arguing, and then they do whatever, but sibling stuff. But man, I was not ready for that at first, of how hard it was going to hit me to watch kids cry because they didn't want to leave each other.
Yeah, I honestly, so when I left TV news in 2018 and found Yolo Mentoring, I'm like, this is
that was 2018.
2018. Oh my gosh, it was so long ago. I'm like, I'm going to enter a field where, it's in human services. It's relevant to, at that time, I was starting my master's program at Florida Atlantic University. Want to tell the story of how I got to be an employee?
Go. Oh, you want to?
You go after you. Oh yeah.
Man. So, okay. So I mean, we are a small company. I think at our peak we had 40 workers, which was prior to the pandemic. But I think we've had very low overhead always. So I mean, the office cell phone is right here, and that's just what it is. So at the time, it was a Google number, and it was linked to my personal cell phone. So I had like 2 numbers that would ring. So I put my ads out like I do, and this one guy called and left a message, and then he called like 10 minutes later and left another message, and then he called, and I remember sitting there. I think I answered, and it was like, "Hi, is Jackie Hilton, blah blah blah. I'm interested in your position." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool. So we'll set up an interview." This man called me like every day, every 15 minutes on the 15 minutes for like a week. And at first I was like, this man is annoying the hell out of me. But then after a while, I'm like, that's exactly the type of persistence we need in this field. Somebody who's like, I will hunt you down. And, and it was funny. I had to go through my own like personal bias, and I'm like, hell no. And then I was like, okay, maybe. Okay, definitely.
That's
so
funny.
let me down.
And here we are, right? I was so determined. I'm like, this guy told me he was going to call me tomorrow once I finally got a hold of you. I'm like, well, it's 2:00, and I didn't realize that it was a smaller company. I was thinking it was like, something bigger. So I was like, I'm not going to fall through the cracks. I'm going to get a job and enter this field.
Not playing.
Oh my gosh.
He was not playing. And you were on top of stuff. I mean, like I had there's a few people, more than a few, that like are just, to me, dynamite workers. It was a strong work ethic. It was something that you really enjoyed. I get it. The pay might not be where life should be. I mean, the pay scale for mentoring services in general hasn't changed in over a decade. Like no matter how much inflation goes up, it sucks. And I do understand when people are like, well, we're not in it for the money, but money's part of it. And so all of my workers are paid workers. Nobody is a volunteer. I don't really like the whole volunteer aspect. I do understand its purpose when needed, but for what I'm doing, I'm not a fan of it. Anytime I interview somebody and I'm like, why do you want to be a mentor? And they're like, I just want to stable the children and blah, blah, blah. I find sometimes their passion is too overwhelming. And I notice they get burned out the fastest. But then when I find somebody who says, well, I want to do something that like I can give back. And I also like that I get paid for it. So win-win. And when I find that balance, I feel they have less burnout.
Yeah.
Because some days you don't want to work, but you're like, 2 hours left. At least I'm getting paid.
And it makes a difference. So actually, one thing that now where I'm at, after leaving the company, not by not loving the company, we even try to bring it to Maine. Maine, you missed out. We really did.
Gosh. I went to that office like.
We'll talk about that. But
yes,
yeah,
let's talk about that at some point.
Maine, you missed out. Honestly, Yolo company, mentoring company, has such a huge impact. And where I'm at now, in the sense of in my career, I do psychotherapy in an inpatient setting. And I went through training at the Beck Institute with Aaron Beck. He started CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, cognitive therapy.
Real familiar.
And one thing that we learn in cognitive therapy is how impactful and how it can help individuals access what we call their adaptive functioning. Yolo Mentoring has all of that, and mentors are doing it every single day. We're helping kids be connected. Often kids, individuals, adults, kids, you name it, when we see symptoms or behaviors, it's because kids and individuals are feeling disconnected. And having mentors utilize therapeutic interventions, such as going to movies, and that's their first time going to one. That's a connecting moment and helping a child access adaptive functionings, learning how to save, budget, homework, you name it. These are reality-based interventions that I do in my professional life that people are doing with kids every single day at your company, helping them just be able to thrive and be connected to values of what makes them them. So I was already doing that before I got where I'm at now because of your company. So you guys are really helping so many people thrive in realistic ways too.
I 100% believe every child in foster care across the nation should have a mentor. Every single one. I mean, I get it if they choose to say no, but it's, to me, I used to say all the time, this is the fun service. And I ended up, I'm not getting yelled at, but I was told fun is not billable. You can't bill for fun. So I started changing it and say, we reduce stress. That's what our service is. And we do surveys about it, where it's your stress level when kids start. We do our initial survey. We do surveys like 3 and 6 months later. And everybody's like, it's gone down. And I'm sure you even know from experience, how many times has a kid, you show up at the door and the foster parent or group home is like, your mentor is here, and the kids come running out of the room.
Yeah.
Because let's get out of here. You're here for me, right? I want to go to the mall. Can we go to the park? And to have that where like, I'm here for you, kid, whatever you want to do today within reason, but I'm here for you. I think that makes all the difference in the world, because so many times they don't get a choice. How your tutor's here, you have to do tutoring. How your therapist is here, you have to talk about your feelings. Yeah. How your nurse is here, you have to get your blood work done. And a lot of it seems so forced. And this one is kind of like, well, what do you want to do today?
Finally, they get to feel some type of normalcy of what it's like to be a kid.
Yeah. And a different sense of importance. You know, I talk about this a lot too. Sometimes you get so used to negative attention that you threaten to cut your hair, you threaten to throw scissors at somebody, you know, you threaten to destroy a wall, but you don't realize how much positive reinforcement works. I remember saying, hey, there's this kid that like, I've taken him to 2 job interviews. He got a job, but he doesn't have the right clothes. Can we get some sneakers or some shoes for the job? And I remember the case manager said, and I don't think they said it in a malicious way. I think it was kind of like, I don't know if like we really have it in the budget to give him some shoes. And I remember just advocating for him with the supervisor. And then I ended up contacting the CEO of the company. This was in South Florida. And I said, you know, the moment a kid acts up, they get a tutor, they get a mentor, do you want to go into a karate class? Like they get surrounded with services and all this attention because you want to stop this negative behavior. We have a kid that's actually doing what you would want them to do. And he's just asking for the money to buy the new outfit to start a job. Like, wow. It shouldn't have even been a question of, no, it's not in the budget. It should 100% be, let's take him to the store. And the CEO got it. And he was like, you're right. Like, you're right. And so, I mean, remember the next week I took the kid to go buy his outfit and he was thrilled. But I do think sometimes we forget to reward good behavior. Because that's incredibly important.
We're going to hear a brief interruption from, you know, my family coming home, which is not an interruption, really. It's just a special guest appearance.
Hey, girl.
I completely agree with you that, I mean, it can really be the difference maker for some of these individuals, the kids, the adolescents, really learning, I think, like practical skills of what it means to be adulting. You know, some of our mentors really help some of these adolescents, especially, be able to bridge those gaps that sometimes they might not be able to. Sometimes, let's be honest, sometimes foster parents, while good intentions in other areas, just kind of are in it because it becomes a career for them. And it's just kind of what it is. And so to have a mentor who's totally invested in the kids, you know, and saying, hey, listen, you don't know this, how to do this, that's fine. I'm going to show you how to do it because I had to learn it myself, you know. And it's kind of, it's great to learn from somebody who's, you know, not quite ancient, like, you know, I mean, you're ancient, I'm young. So, you know, when I was doing it, it's funny, actually, because I look back and when I left Yolo and I came to Maine, I worked still at the company, the hospital that I'm at, but on the pediatrics wing. And my gosh, the skills that I was able to move forward into the inpatient adolescent unit, especially, it was easy. It was great. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. You guys are all doing this wrong. I'm like, this is how you're supposed to interact with adolescents.
I love working with the teenagers. I get it. It can be challenging, but I think what I like is that they're vocal. So even like over the weekend, well, you know, I'm still working with kids. I mean, I had a kid that I was working with over the weekend. He was pissed. And I remember sitting there saying, I get it that you're upset. You know, and I was like, and I even approached him. I was like, you know, can I speak to you a moment? He's like, what do you want? I was like, you know, I get it. You're upset. You have every right to feel how you're feeling. Nobody can tell you you're wrong for how you're feeling. And I think something that simple is enough. Now, what I did say, I was like, now, cursing at your case manager is not appropriate. I do appreciate you didn't punch the wall. I do appreciate you didn't get out of control. Maybe the fact that you cursed isn't the best decision, because I think the moment you lose your cool, people don't give you your respect. So now they're not listening to what you really have to say. So before you start cursing, think about the message that you want to get across. And it was, I don't know, I like talking with kids, but I like seeing their logic. And I remember a kid saying to me, he's like, you know, I didn't mean to curse at her. I'm just angry. Totally get it. Right, you're angry and you're frustrated and you feel like there's no option. So you just kind of lose control. And then it takes you it's like opening a floodgate and you don't know how to stop the flood. So you just have to let the water keep flowing until it's done. And then you don't realize that you destroyed this village. And a few kids, I mean, have been like, yes, cool. Now that we know this, how can we get you to snap once you realize that that dam is broken? How can we get you back so we don't destroy everything? I mean, a few times I've had case managers call me, like I'm at somewhere and I'm like, what's happening? And they're like, this kid's acting out of control. Can you help? He seems to listen to you. I'm like, I will try. But I mean, more than a couple times, I remember saying, just put me on speaker. And I've said that thing, like, is this one of those times that we talked about that you're kind of out of control, but it's really not that big of a deal. You just need a moment to cool off. And every single time, yes. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Like, perfect. We're making progress. And I'm like, what is it? You need them like 5 minutes for you to chill out and just stay in a room and don't destroy anything. And then I'm like, all right, I'm going to trust you that you're going to do that. And, you know, usually it works out.
Yeah. You know, it's honestly, I, like I said, I wish we brought it to Maine, and we'll segue into this. So I wasn't quite ready to cut ties with Yolo. You know, I remember at the Christmas party giving the bad news, and you're like, I understand. But
you still came to the other Christmas party.
I did. I totally did. And I'm still waiting from the other invitations as, you know.
This is our 10-year anniversary. So I was hoping to do a big one at the end of this year. And I wanted to like bring as many former staff as I could. Well, I guess it just depends how the world is going right now.
Yeah, the pandemic is such a crazy time. And that's why social workers, mentors are so needed. So many kids are, you know, probably isolating and not by choice, right? So what are some healthy ways that we can still help kids feel connected and engaged, especially during this time? And you know what, like, I didn't want to give him a special shout out, but Felix, my frenemy, you know, he finds very creative ways at, you know, utilizing technology. Kids are technologically savvy, you know, they love video games. There are ways that you can still have therapeutic interactions with individuals, meeting them where they're at. And he's pretty good at doing that. I'll give him a little shout out. He'll be happy that I gave him a shout out. But
he watches.
Yeah, he does. He's my biggest fan, actually.
Oh, okay. I was like, you could send him this video every hour on the hour.
That's hilarious. Yeah. But no, this pandemic is definitely crazy. But with Maine, I wasn't ready to cut ties. So we try to bring it up here. Especially Maine is so rural. So to have ways to, and you know what, so much nature. So there's so many things you can help. I mean, research shows we're not in nature enough. And we have it right in my backyard, literally, as you can see the woods.
Yeah.
But that's why I have to wear the Paul Bunyan outfit. You know, I got to look the Maine part.
In case the brawny guy wanted to retire, you're next.
Absolutely. But Maine just did not get back to us. We called the HS. The director
multiple times. You even showed up multiple times.
Nothing.
I'm still blown away that how like the lack of response for it.
And it was like this person. Oh wait, no, it's this person. No, it's the director of this person. It was just this ring around, and it was crazy. I'm like, okay, so who am I supposed to talk to?
Every time I called, I left a voicemail. And every time I left a voicemail, I sent an email. And I think twice the email was responded to and was like, yep, this is the right person to call. And I just remember saying, does this person ever call us back? I don't or if who's under her that I can call that will call me back? How is it that I can't even have a conversation about services in this? Oh my gosh, that was beyond my comprehension.
Are you telling me you pulled a Jackie by calling?
I sure did. And then I asked Jackie to pull a Jackie, and Jackie showed up.
Yeah. You know, doing what I do best.
I think you showed up 3 times.
It was like 3 times. Yeah, here in Bangor. Yep. Yeah, it was crazy. It was just this nonstop ring around of, this person's not here. You know, that's what I got a lot. Oh, they're not here. I'm like, okay, well, when are they going to be here? Oh, I don't know.
Right.
Well, I'll call them 20 times if I have to. In one day, and I'll do it the next day again.
It was awful.
So we almost got an awesome service in theory here in Maine, which I feel would have helped a lot of adolescents, kids here, just be able to have one more resource. I think here we're pretty quick to send them to the hospital, which is unfortunate because, it's what I love about social work. We look at the person in their environment, right? And what are some other factors in their environment, who they interact with, that can help them in a positive way. And this would have been an excellent resource of doing that, in my opinion.
Well, I just finished, we are evidence-based approved as of last April. And I just finished in December my site visit with COA, Council of Accreditation. I just got my report back of things that I have to correct by March. So hopefully once that's done, then I will be fully accredited through the Council of Accreditation for mentoring services as well as general services, and that is to couple in sibling visitation. This way, nobody can alter my program because it's based, it's accredited. And then the goal is to start franchising.
That's amazing. That's going to be awesome. And you know what, Maine, if you're smart, you'll hop on this opportunity, because I can't even go on. I work in a psychiatric hospital. I look towards resources all the time that would help my patients when they leave. And this could be one more amazing resource to make a difference in how a child might represent. And I work with adults now, and there's not many adult mentoring programs, but still, I'm working with adults, but really kids, unfortunately, kids with trauma that it's left unresolved. So they're still kind of in these patterns because of trauma responses. So I'm really working with adult kids, and had we had that middle person while they're still kids, and being connected what it means to be a kid, and those hopefulness factors, it really could make a difference. So when you franchise it, Maine, you better get it.
Hopefully they're watching.
I really, truly appreciate just you being able to share what it looks like, that you don't have to just get a degree. You don't have to be stuck in this idea of, well, you just got to do your time, or you got to be stuck in burnout, because, saving the world looks very different in different ways. And you can do it while earning an income, and while also, in your case, you get to kind of play hard, work hard, and enjoy it all still years later, which is amazing.
I think just because, they'll say just because you want to do something selfless doesn't mean it's selfish to ask for money for it. And I feel like they always equate together. Well, it's selfish to ask for money. It's not. And I mean, I took a service, and I will say this too. A lot of people say, well, I want to do a field where I make a lot of money. And even my son says that. They're like, well, I want to look at how much this is, how much I get paid to do this work before I start doing it. Totally get it. Like with job interviews, totally get it. But, I think when you're looking for your career path, if you are passionate about something, to me, the money is there, because you have no idea what kind of angle it can take you on. And I do remember sitting there saying, I'm going to take a service like mentoring, which is normally volunteers, and I'm going to charge for it. But I'm going to do a structured program, and I'm going to prove to them why because I firmly do believe you get what you pay for. And I have a very good retention rate with my workers, because it makes sense. I think now I wish I could pay more, but it makes sense roughly to pay for the work that you're doing. We are not diagnosing and treating. We are teaching and hanging with kids, which is great. But I think if you are always doing it for no money, at some point you have to do a cost benefit analysis. And sometimes people say it's not worth it. This time I could be using to make money. And then when you're with the kids, you're like, you know what? This is kind of cool. It's a win-win.
And the cool thing too, and what I love about, my birds are super happy about, your conversation about making money.
They wanted to come to Maine.
But the great thing about Yolo Mentoring too, and it's not the fact that look at it as more like a gig on the side. I think you really have to be invested in a lot of it. But I was able to do school while doing it. I was able to be so flexible with how I see kids while working with the foster parents. It's a great way you can still work other jobs if you needed to. And, you can it really gives you the flexibility to be as full-time as possible, or even as part-time as possible, or per diem as possible, which is great.
Right. I do like this. I will say the majority of the people that I've hired and worked for me are, college and grad school level. And I don't discriminate against older, but I do feel that we stay towards a younger demographic of hiring. Everybody who I do hire is over 21. I do feel there's a type of life experience that you have once you're old enough to get into a club and old enough to get kicked out. You know, it's to me at like 19 and 20, I just feel you could be super mature, but also 19 and 20 is still too young that they could hang out with the 17-year-old who's about to turn 18. You know, to me, a 21-year-old is not really hanging out with a 17-year-old for any reason. So, and it also puts a lot of the teenagers' problems into a perspective. You know, there's other agencies out there that hire only retired individuals, and all their mentors are only retired individuals. And I've been at this meeting and they've said it, and I'm like, cool. Hi, we kind of hire the opposite. Like I hire kids, you know, students in grad school and in college. And I remember sitting there saying, there's a piece of the pie for everybody. I know that everyone says, well, you know, I want to do a mentoring agency. All right, well, then you can do one. Well, I can't do one because you already have one. Have you ever been down the cereal aisle? There is enough for everybody. It is not a finite piece of pie. This thing is infinite with slices. Go get yourself your piece.
That's awesome. That's a great analogy. It's true. It really is. Like there's so many different programs out there for different people and what based off their needs. Now, I only have positive experiences working at Yolo and working for you. I think you've created really, honestly, a masterpiece of an agency just because of the fact that it really provides exactly what you said, a buffet of cereals in this case, of options of what you and how you want to function with it, and with the flexibility. Oh my gosh! And I think what I love most about it too was like taking time off. You know, you very much like. Do you see your?
Well, oh my gosh, my theory I still remember this. I was, you know, a couple of years ago, I was 18 or something or 19, and I was in college and I was home for the summer. So I had to get like a part-time job quick. So I got one working at like a pizza place. So I was like on the grill making stuff. And I remember sitting there saying,
oh, you disappeared on the camera.
Sorry, someone was calling.
Don't they know you're being interviewed?
So I remember telling him, I was like, hi, in like, you know, 3 weeks, I'm going to go. I'm not going to be here for a weekend. So just let, you know, what's the thing? So just don't schedule me. And he's like, well, I'll see if that can work. And I was like, what do you mean if that can work? And it didn't make sense to me at like 18 or 19 I was. And what do you mean that can work? And he's like, well, you know, if no one else is working and we have to schedule you, then we have to schedule you. And I was like, why would you schedule me if I'm not going to be here? Like, I'm not going to be here. And he's like, I don't know if I can approve it. I was like, okay, let me rephrase that. I won't be here that weekend. And so, oh my gosh, that has always stuck with me. And so ever since I started my own company, I tell everyone, I was like, do not ask me for time off. I do not care. Just let me know when you are taking off. But this way I don't bother you when you're on vacation. And then I also I'm a firm believer in like your mental health. And if you need time off, freaking take it. Like, why should you ask? You're a grown adult. If it affects your work so much and it can't get done, then you just don't work. But you know, never ask for time off. If you need it, take it.
You hear that, everyone? You want self-care? You better join this organization because it's literally self-care.
Oh my goch. And
you even play with the kids.
Shadiness about it. I just have workers that are like, so I'm going on a cruise, or like, I probably am not going to work next week because I have finals. Do what you need to do. Make up the hours if you want. Like, see them double the week after. This way in a pay period, your paycheck is still not affected. You can rearrange stuff. I don't understand people being inflexible.
No, it's true. I love it. I think more organizations should really hear kind of that, because I think we want to drive this workforce, which is great. I mean, earn the most from your buck, but then you have exhausted employees and they don't want to work. So you're like, okay, yeah, is it really a win?
Well, I feel the mentor's job is to look out for the children. And then my job as a supervisor is to look out for the workers. And I'm a firm believer that happy workers do happy work. And as you can see, and a lot of my workers who I think are super consistent, I will call them and tell them they're doing a great job. But also when I'm assigning clients, I will say, what is it that you need to keep you happy? Do you want more one-on-one mentoring? Do you want more siblings? What is it, the caseload that you can handle? You do a great job and I want you to continue. Like, so what is it? What can I do to help you to be consistent and to be successful? And I love it because a lot of times the workers, it's their own self-check-in. Actually, if I could probably get these two kids off my case, because we're not really connecting or bonding. Or if I could, get like another sibling visit because I have a slot open that I feel I could use for that. And then that would help. And then I can have my balance in life. Like they're finding their own harmony and I'm just assigning based on what makes sense to them. Perfect. If I need to hire more, I just hire more people. I don't understand overworking somebody.
Well, even with that, you said something, the check-ins, my gosh, some supervisors might say, too bad. I've had you advocate on my behalf when I've had some challenging situations. Unfortunately, we do work with individuals with trauma, and sometimes trauma manifests itself in different ways. And
sure.
As mentors, especially while we're in grad school, we're not trained to always deal with some of those traumatic responses. And it could be kind of dangerous for us too. And I think you handled advocating on our behalf when we kind of encountered adolescents, in my case, who had more of aggressive behavior or responses. And I think I've never, ever felt scared to say, hey, I really, this, or in the moment of a crisis, hey, this kid is threatening me, blah, blah, blah.
What do I do?
What do I do? And just, you were really quick to respond. And I didn't feel like I was left to either go back to, like, you even asked me, what do you want to do? Well, I can't. Or, you know what? This situation happened. I think I can continue with this kid, just a change in what that might look like and how I engage. But I've never felt scared or even stuck with a difficult situation while working with you. I think you really responded really well to all of your coworkers, your workers in general. Because I've heard numerous stories from other workers who had maybe similar situations, and you've been right there at a call and helped guide them through it. So, I mean, I think that's an important thing to establish is I think Yolo Mentoring has a supervisor that's there for them. For the great times and the bad times. How many times have we gone ice skating? The best times, right? So I just wanted to throw that out there. I think that was so important, especially as I look towards future careers, is what's the culture like? How is my supervisor advocating for me? And I didn't settle less.
Oh, well, two things related to that. Three, thank you. But I'm, when we do orientation, I tell the mentors, I get it, we're a small company, but I'm like, I'm your direct point of contact. So if there's something you need, contact me. And I always say to them, if I don't hear from you every day for the first 2 weeks to a month, something's wrong. While you're working and you're getting your footing, I should be getting phone calls. If you think, should I or shouldn't I call? You absolutely should call. Yeah. And I say this to everybody, and I think this is how I explain it to them. If you make a decision on something, the liability falls on you. But if you don't know what to do and you call me and I direct you in that decision and you use my directive, the liability falls on me. Mm. So let the liability fall on me. That's why I pay liability insurance. If you're like, I don't know what to do, and I'm like, this is what you should do. And then we have to go to court and they will say, Jackie, why did you do that? Your response should say, because my supervisor told me to. And then you're off the stand and I go on the stand. Why did you tell him to do that? Yeah. So, and I do feel very fortunate too that the attorney who represents us was a child legal services attorney for Florida, even wrote a few laws of what to do. So, I mean, I feel I also have a good support team and, at a text message away, because a lot of times if I say, if I have a text, I'm like, hey, I have a quick question. They've been with me for years. Also, Rebecca Lindstedt Rossi, who was our clinical director, but now she's like a big deal for Magellan Medicaid. But between the two of them, I never felt also that I couldn't handle a situation. I might call and be like, hey, I'm curious, this is happening right now. But it's because of that we've had a lot of protocols in place. And I do tell the workers, if you call me and I don't answer, text me. Don't say it's an emergency because I'm going to think someone's bleeding. Tell me it's urgent. And I'm very particular about that. So I was like, if it's urgent and I don't respond within 5 seconds, because I could be in the bathroom, I could be making dinner, I'm like, I'll get to them later. Obviously, if someone's calling me at 7:30 at night, I'm assuming it's work related and I'm going to answer. But if I don't respond to your text that it's urgent, call the trainer. If one of the trainers don't answer, message somebody in the group me, because we all have a group chat of all the workers. I was like, somebody will get back to you. And it's never been an incident so far, knock on wood, that somebody has not been able to get a hold of me or somebody to handle a situation properly.
In 10 years, that's saying something.
10 years. Yeah. This June 1st will be the official 10-year mark.
Amazing.
So about 4 months away, 5 months away. But, 96% of all companies that start do not make it to 10 years. So I am trying to be part of that 4%.
So would you recommend an MSW degree in all your wisdom?
Well, yes. I mean, yes, because I do think it's a pretty general degree. So you have a lot to choose from if you're not sure what you want to do. I have interns, and I've had interns for years. Wow, over 5 years of interns, because I had to just redo my agreement with them. So Central Florida, thank you. I'm a provider of them. But so I have 2 interns, and this semester we were talking about, well, what do you want to do? And one of them was like, I want to do my own company. And I was like, cool, do you know anybody who does their own company? And they're like, not for social work. Awesome. So, a lot of what, she was with me last week and we were going through resumes on Indeed. And she was like, wow, I've never seen the opposite side of, now you're reviewing the resumes and you're looking for what you want and what you don't want and reviewing it and saying yes or no based on their resumes and stuff. And I was like, right. And we were just cold calling people and it was really cool. But I do, because you might not know where your footing is. Maybe you want to work with substance abuse. Maybe you want to work with mental health. Maybe you want to work with battered women. Maybe you want to work, in a homeless shelter. Maybe you want to work in a school or a hospital as a social worker. Like maybe you like the medical side of it as well, or maybe you want the educational piece. So yes, I think an MSW is so broad. It is the highest of all the therapy degrees, aside from being a doctor. It is, as far as master's level, it is the highest. So you can supervise an LMHC, but an LMHC cannot supervise MSW. So yeah, absolutely, I do recommend it. But one thing that I will say is you cannot teach passion and hard work. That is, you either have it or you don't. People can hone in on those skills, but you either have it or you don't. There's a lot of people I know that don't have degrees, but run their own company because they have a passion for it.
Absolutely. And I think you're a force to be reckoned with in that category. I think you're confident, you're assertive, and I think that you're super passionate above all else. So I think that you're in a great example of somebody who has a drive as well as passion to make their dream come to life. And that's used as a social worker. So I think that's amazing.
Well, thank you.
No, absolutely. Joe, I really appreciate just being the first guest on the Unsung Empaths interview, the Jack Daly show, right?
Show.
I really, truly appreciate just you joining me, but also your friendship and your mentoring ship, right? And social work. Get it? Mentoring. But I really, I'm hoping and I can't wait to see how Yolo becomes an amazing franchise and goes beyond into Maine and other places in the world to really establish just a crucial service that's needed. And I think also for people who are interested in entering the social work realm, this is such a great opportunity to see what it's like, and really as like a hands-on type of way. Sometimes, even like from tech work to clinician, where I'm at, it's very different how you engage with the patient. And so it's, in your case, it's different how the caseworker would engage with a child versus a mentor. And oftentimes the mentors are there, side by side. Yeah.
I have a level of engaging with a child as a mentor that I feel I couldn't do as a case manager because the hat was different. Yeah. I feel as the case manager, there's that particular, like my shirt collar has to be pressed. I represent this case. I represent this case in front of a judge. Whereas as a mentor, I'm like, what's up, buddy? What are we doing today? Oh, so you had an issue in school. I mean, it's sometimes one joke. I remember a kid, he got expelled for smoking marijuana in school. And as a mentor or as a case manager, I'm like, all right, now I have to find a new placement. Now I have to find a new school. And I have to, and that's my mentality. But as the mentor, I just looked at him, I was like, you couldn't smoke a cigarette and just get suspended for 3 days? Like you had to bring illegal drugs to school and get expelled? How about if we mess up a little bit, not a whole lot? And he was like, I didn't think about that. So I do feel that's part of the role of mentoring. Like,
I love it.
Okay, I get it that you want to rebel, but can we rebel safely?
That's funny. That's funny. And you know what? Kids respond well, I find, typically with that sarcastic humor of, like, you know, a mentor, right? It's just, it's just positive in many ways. And I think it just, I find that they often really try to do their best to, I don't want to say that we should strive for them to try to like get our approval, but I think that they really do look up to the mentors in that way, where they really put in that extra work because they do develop that close bond that it wouldn't look like that with a therapist or even a caseworker.
Well, it's being authentic. I think children can respond to that. And when your hat is a little fuzzy, you can come off more authentic. When it's very rigid and structured, as I'm the therapist, I'm running the session, this is how it is. Sometimes you lose a bit of, you know, with some kids, they're like, well, I don't want to see a therapist. Man, I wish I had one. Are you kidding me? I'm gonna like sit down. I got to tell you some stuff. We got to unpack this and put it back together because I got someplace to be in an hour. So, you know, and sometimes saying that to a kid, like, why didn't think about it that way? I mean, that's your session.
Oh. That's a horrible sound. You saw that?
What happened?
I don't know. I think just the lighting. Oh my gosh. But absolutely. I always say with my patients that don't want a therapist, I'm like, therapist see therapist. I promise you. Like,
I look forward to a discussion with you and like a group of therapists and talk about a topic where everybody handled the situation differently, but it was the same situation. Because, and this would be for any advice, I mean, the world of academia is very different. Can be very different in real life. And I tell this to students too, a lot of your textbooks would be in a perfect world with perfect funding, with perfect resources, this is what you would do. Yeah. But in a world where there is not that, how do you make it happen? Because you have a client in front of you that needs help and you need to get it for them, or at least do your best. So I do think it's interesting to see different perspectives of this is what's supposed to happen, but this is what we did and this worked out without any liability issues.
Again, Joe, thank you so much. And I hope you just continue to make the difference that you are already doing.
You as well. Thank you. Bye, Jackie.
Bye.